Coming up, a man arrested after a Hunter Valley jewellery store heist. Alleged cocaine smuggler Mustafa Balouche transported to Sydney in shackles. And Australia's biggest names pay tribute to TV icon Bert Newton at his funeral.
Tonight, Australia farewells a TV icon, the state funeral for the late, great Bert Newton. Lucky escapes as the Hunter gets hit by flash flooding. An arrest at Grafton over the shooting of Port Stephens man David King. Exclusive CCTV of an attempted jewellery heist inside a Maitland shopping centre. And Australia close to securing its first T20 World Cup crown.
This is NBN News.
Good evening. Bert Newton was loved for his slapstick humour and big shining smile. But today, his farewell was a more poignant occasion, a state funeral with hymns and prayers in Melbourne's St Patrick's Cathedral. There was no shortage of celebrities paying their respects, but in essence, the service was all about a family saying goodbye.
A beloved double act together till the end. Damien Ryan, NBN News.
Record-shattering rain has fallen over the Hunter, with rivers creeping up to dangerous levels in the dead of night. The wild weather eased in time to avoid any serious damage, but it left the region waterlogged.
Daybreak revealed a sodden landscape, vast inland seas, indications of how close the Hunter came to a flood emergency, buses replacing trains.
Live now to reporter Sam Burberry. And Sam, how's the run home shaping up?
Tash, the Hunter line here is still affected with that water near the tracks yet to clear, which is bad news for those finishing up the weeks. To put what we've seen in some context, Weather Zone tells us the 24 hours to 9 o'clock this morning was the wettest November day in Merriwa in 52 years and at Cessnock Airport in 30 years. Tash.
Thank you, Sam. A third man has been arrested over the fatal shooting of 45-year-old David King in Port Stephens. Officers were called to Hideaway Drive at Saltash on August 29, following reports a ute had hit a tree, only to discover the driver, Mr King, had been shot. Two men, aged 27 and 39, were arrested last Friday. Today, a 26-year-old was arrested in Grafton and charged with a raft of offences, including murder. He's due to face Raymond Terrace Local Court on December 20.
A would-be thief with his eyes on a $140,000 piece of jewellery in an East Maitland store has been thwarted. Police chasing down a man after a quick-thinking store manager alerted them to the robbery.
Dressed in a beanie and sandals, this man had his eye on an East Maitland jewellery store's most expensive piece. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
New South Wales has recorded 286 new cases of COVID-19 and 2 deaths. One, an unvaccinated woman in her 70s from southwest Sydney. The other, a fully vaccinated man in his 70s at Maitland Hospital. Both had underlying conditions. Queensland has recorded 2 cases of community transmission, each linked to the Moree cluster. 57 new COVID cases have been recorded in Hunter, New England, the vast majority outside the Hunter itself. 16 are in the Mid-Coast LGA, 13 at Moree and 12 in Inverell. Of the 13 infections recorded locally, Port Stephens has 6. There are 3 at Lake Macquarie, just 2 in Newcastle, while Dungog and Maitland each have 1.
Alleged cocaine smuggler Mustafa Balouche is spending a fortnight in segregation at Sydney's Silverwater Jail before his move to Goulburn's Supermax. The 33-year-old didn't appear in court today to face a new charge, while police heralded the hard work that brought him back home.
Mustafa Balouche stepping outside, but quickly headed for the inside. Emma Partridge, NBN News.
Young activists have tonight gathered outside the Carrington Coal Terminal, taking aim at the federal government over climate change. Live now to Olivia Grace Curran. Olivia, what's happening there?
Well, Tash, around 70 school students and adults are gathering here tonight for what they're calling a fossil fuel fiesta. Now, it's a community protest led by School Strike for Climate, aimed to coincide with the closing stages of COP26, the global conference for action on climate change. And as you can see, everyone here behind me is dressed up, and they're dressed in red, symbolising what they say is a code red. These young people, they say, they're worried about their future, and they're calling on our government to do more. Now, tonight there will be speeches from school students along with roving performers and activities. Tash.
Thanks, Olivia. Teachers rallied in Newcastle today as part of an ongoing union campaign over staff shortages. The Federation says data shows 65% of schools across Newcastle and Lake Macquarie have had vacant permanent teaching positions in the past month.
The government must act consistent with the advice that it has before it. That advice tells us that we need to increase teacher salaries and make the job more sustainable, more manageable.
Federation officials will take the campaign to other regional areas over the next week.
If you've been bombarded with dodgy text messages and emails lately, you're not alone. The opposition claims the country is in the grip of a scamdemic, with many elderly and vulnerable people being fooled by cunning fraudsters.
It is a big issue here in Newcastle on the Hunter, but it is costing our nation $33 billion every year.
It's tripled over the course of COVID because more people are doing stuff from home and online. We need strong action from the federal government to knock it on the head.
Labor is promising to set up a national anti-scam centre if it wins the next election. Primary care is expecting an increase of homeless people after the Central Coast's extended lockdown. The charity's biggest concern is their health, but there's a program to help.
The homeless crisis on the Central Coast is no secret.
Two impressive ships turned heads on arrival in Newcastle Harbor today. HMAS Hobart is in the city for a goodwill visit. The guided missile destroyer has been on manoeuvres in the Tasman Sea and took part in Operation Tasman Shield earlier this year. Meanwhile, secrecy surrounds the arrival of super yacht Stardust here from Langkawi in Malaysia. We don't know who owns the 62-metre vessel, but they're certainly travelling the world in style.
Let's take a look at the temperatures in the region today, and it's certainly warmed up with that rain. Kurrambong topped at 23, Nelson Bay 28.
You're watching NBN News. Still ahead, the toll rises from the Astro World Music Festival.
Time running out to reach a deal at the Glasgow Climate Summit.
And the death of South African leader who freed Nelson Mandela. The Prime Minister has chosen a Friday afternoon to release the details of his long-awaited net zero climate plan. Scott Morrison was himself a target as Labor scrutinised his claim that he has never told a lie while in public life.
The Prime Minister's struggling before revealing
Liberal MP John Alexander has announced he'll retire from politics at the next federal election. The former tennis champion will vacate the key Sydney seat of Bennelong after regaining it for the Liberals in 2010. It's expected Liberal pre-selection for the seat, which was once held by John Howard, will be hotly contested.
A 22-year-old engineering student has become the 9th concert-goer to die from the crowd crush at the Astro World Music Festival. Her family has taken aim at the organisers, saying last Friday's event was not a tragedy, but an atrocity.
Pulled out on a stretcher before medics lose control.
Now it's over to Gavin Morris with a quick look at our weather.
And Gav, the rain's clearing just in time for the weekend. Well done.
Oh, don't we love that? We've earned it as well. It's been a bit of a wild old week, that's for sure. But taking a look at tomorrow, let's get stuck straight into it. Now, the winds, they're going to be gusty. Everyone, you've got the westerlies there set up. Throughout the west, just the occasional isolated shower. It's not going to be too out of control. Noticeably cooler for the Greater Hunter. It is going to be windy, but it's going to be generally fine. Some showers for the Upper Hunter. But from the Macquarie Coast to the Gold Coast, it's really going to be quite stunning. Beautiful big blue skies, the westerly winds pushing through, but the air is going to be clean, it's going to be crisp, free of pollen and dust. So overall, it is going to be very nice. But a closer look at all of your details a little later in the bulletin.
A lot of people will be happy about that. Thanks, Gav. Still to come, the device that could do away with daily blood thinners.
More like a tarantula, the mega funnel web that's wowing experts.
And young patients help name the next generation of guide dogs. New South Wales is a step closer to legalising euthanasia through a bill giving terminally ill adults the option to end their lives peacefully. But the proposed law has met with opposition from both Premier Dominic Perrottet and Labor leader Chris Minns, who both spoke out against it. And a warning, some people may find the following story distressing.
Euthanasia. It's divisive, difficult and terribly sad.
Chris O'Keefe, NBN News.
The man credited with dismantling apartheid in South Africa has apologised for the country's crimes against black people in a video released after his death. F.W. de Klerk was both reviled and celebrated for his life's work. He was 85.
He was born Frederick William, but rose to prominence by his initials, F.W. de Klerk.
Belarus and Poland are trading threats as thousands of migrants find themselves political pawns in an increasingly bitter border dispute. Belarus has been accused of weaponising refugees by urging them to cross into Poland, a gateway to the European Union. Poland is rushing troops to the frontier, threatening even greater sanctions against the Lukashenko regime. The Belarus leader now declaring he will retaliate by cutting off crucial gas supplies to Western Europe.
After a few weeks' rest on doctor's orders, the Queen has confirmed she will attend the annual Remembrance Day service in the heart of London. As per tradition, the 95-year-old monarch will watch from the balcony of a building in Whitehall. And some reassuring words from Prince Charles, who responded that Her Majesty was all right when asked by a member of the public in South London.
Guide dogs need a lot of training to graduate from playful pup to constant companion, and they also need a name. Fawn, Frederick and Frodo have just been given theirs by the young patients at the Children's Hospital at Westmead. The children were shown videos of the puppies to boost spirits during lockdown. I'm sure they did just that.
Could watch those puppies all night.
Me too.
Sport now with Kate Haberfield.
And Kate, what a win for our cricketers.
Yes, one more and they're world champions. Thanks, guys. After the break, Marcus Stoinis and Matthew Wade blast Australia past Pakistan. An injury blow for the Socceroos as they draw with the Saudis. And why the Blues skipper has just been slugged $10,000. Australia is on the verge of breaking its T20 World Cup drought, qualifying for the final with a pulsating win over Pakistan. Matthew Wade and Marcus Stoinis sealed victory, rescuing a run chase that was threatening to get out of reach.
Australia, a win away from filling the one glaring hole in our trophy cabinet.
Former captain Michael Clarke is convinced Australia is a sure bet to beat New Zealand.
I believe we've got a great 2020 team. We've got so many talented players. We just haven't performed for a number of years in that format as well as we should. So I'm not surprised we're in the final. I won't be surprised when we win it, but I think the boys deserve a lot of credit for the way they've played.
Too bad he's not as confident when it comes to backing a horse running in the Hunter. On hand to promote Newcastle's richest race today, Clarke says he's still assessing the form guide for the big event tomorrow. No time for the Socceroos to dwell on missed opportunities. They were straight back into the gym today ahead of their next World Cup qualifier against China on Wednesday morning. After the break, two supercar bridesmaids chasing breakthrough wins. And meet the Hurricane, the 105-year-old who's just set a 100-metre world record. Chaz Mostert and Brodie Kostecki have both been on the podium since Supercars resumed. Now they want to stand on the top step at Sydney Motorsport Park this weekend. Many of us struggled to find motivation during lockdown, but that was never the case for the Jets women. Co-captain Cassidy Davis says Newcastle is more driven than ever to make the finals and has found plenty to love about the new season.
One of Newcastle's most recognisable stars back in Jets colours, but not to play. Samantha Pote, NBN News.
Newcastle Olympic will make its debut on the national stage tomorrow night with a nod to its own history in the process. Olympic will host Macarthur at No. 2 Sports Ground in the FFA Cup.
For one of the region's proudest football clubs, tomorrow night will be a jewel in the crown.
The biggest match in the club's history, like on the national stage. We've been close a few times, but...
We're all going for Olympic in my household.
OK, all right. That sounds like an order.
Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Kate.
Stay with us. Gav has the latest weekend weather details after the break.
This report brought to you by McDonald Jones Homes, building the Australian dream for over 34 years.
Gav's here now with the weather.
And Gav, it's good to see the sunshine returning for the weekend.
Absolutely. It's a weekend I think we all need, and it's going to be fine as well. Shaping up nicely, in fact, after what has been a pretty wild time right across the entire region. Let's take a look at this evening's weather photo. Now, every single cloud has a rainbow, but you need the sunshine to go with it, and that's exactly what we've got on the way this weekend. Thank you so much to Bronwyn for that photo at Nambucca. Beautiful Nambucca. Who doesn't love Nambucca? The past. Thank you, Bronwyn. Let's take a look at the rain over the past 24 hours. We've had rain here, good numbers right throughout the Greater Hunter here. Solid numbers, impressive in fact, because it was so widespread, and that's why we've seen flooding occur right throughout the valley. We had about 60 to 90 millimetres come on down. Big numbers right throughout Queensland as well. In fact, it's been falling from the WA border all the way throughout the eastern half of the country. So at the moment that big band has cleared, this has been a lovely little column of warm, dry air that moved in today and made for some very comfortable conditions. We've seen the cold air, though, start to sweep in over South Australia and Victoria, producing snow across the Alpine districts and plenty of it. Now, that cold air is going to come through and it's going to affect us throughout tomorrow. So we've got howling westerly winds on the way. It's going to be really quite windy because this is quite an intense low moving offshore throughout tomorrow, and that's going to help with those winds. They'll settle down as we move into next week, but this is a cold air mass that is engulfing all of the southeast. Let's take a look around the nation. It's hot now in the west for Perth. The Alice is much cooler. What a week the Alice has had. Some record-breaking rainfall that came down there throughout the week. Storms in the north, and it's going to be very windy right throughout the areas from Sydney to Brisbane. Let's take a look at temperatures reached throughout today. Well, as expected, it certainly did warm as we moved into the afternoon. The sun came out and it was beautiful after all of that overnight heavy rain cleared after producing substantial totals. Also drying out quickly. We needed that dry air also coming in right across the entire region. Taking a look at the winds, well, we've got the westerly winds and they will be howling from sunrise to sunset. We actually need it. We need a bit of a dry out phase for us. Now the cloud is going to gather throughout the upper parts of the Hunter, and we're going to see generally fine conditions and a little bit of sunshine on the way, as Paul said, right throughout the coastal areas. But we will have to deal with these winds. There will be a bit of a wind chill factor thrown in as well. We're only going to top out into the low 20s throughout tomorrow. So it's a little bit of a cool start to the weekend, but at least it's generally going to be dry. Apart from the upper Hunter, we may see just a couple of showers there occur throughout the upper parts of the valley. Let's take a look at the coastal situation. A little bit of swell pulsing in off that low. Gale wind warnings have been issued. Those westerlies are going to be really, really strong for tomorrow. Now there's an early high. Then we're going to be hitting the low there at about 22:11. Then back to the high again before 5. Sun to rise 5:44 down at 7:33. And we've got the full moon coming up next Friday. Looking at this forecast, it is going to warm. The winds are with us right across the weekend. Settling a little bit on Sunday. Don't mind the look of Sunday, particularly throughout the valley. Only the small chance of a shower there throughout tomorrow. Next week, looking pretty good. And for the Central Coast, also generally going to be fine. Temperatures gradually warming, but not very much. It is going to be a cool November week. Let's take a look at this evening's surf footage. Well, a little bit lumpy, a little bit ordinary. We actually had the southeast. We had the westerlies in the morning. Then it's switching around to the south. But now the westerlies have kicked back in. Tomorrow we should have a nice little kick off that low that is going to pull away from the coast. A nice little pulse in the swell, and then you've got the westerly winds all day long, but they're going to be very, very strong. But I think there's going to be some lovely, small, clean waves on the way tomorrow.
Thanks, Gav. And that's NBN News on this Friday.
From all of us here, have a great weekend. Good night.
Good night.
Here you go. You'd treasure that, wouldn't you?